So I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. A lot of this presentation was gifted by our family in Pennsylvania, Tesla Owners Club Pennsylvania, and actually they even got some of it from Delaware Valley. So this presentation is not from us. I made some edits and some changes and updates, but I want to make sure I give credit to them. They did a tremendous job with this presentation. All right, so we're mostly going to cover commonly asked questions and winter driving tips. Part 2 will deal more with tires, preconditioning. It's a little bit of everything, but mostly what we'll look at today is commonly asked questions and winter driving tips. All right, so I'm getting a warning for limited regenerative braking. We'll talk about the term regenerative braking, but you might have heard the term regen. It means regenerative braking. What are the dashes on the power output regen? What does it all mean, right? So your battery is cold. We've entered the season. It's here. We see these little dashes. So what this means is you might not be able to charge until your battery warms up. Charging rate may be slow. Now, if it's extremely cold and your car has been sitting for a while, you might see a little blue bar. And what that means is that you have range in there that isn't able to be used until the battery warms up to a certain temperature. And that's just basically keeping the battery at a safe level. All right, so dots on the right mean that power output is currently diminished due to the cold. And on the left, it means regenerative. It just means that your ability to capture energy through regenerative braking is limited. You also will see this on the right if you don't have a lot of battery. So today, I actually had to go charge the car. I went over to the supercharger, and on the left, I had the dots, and on the right, I had the dots. So that meant that, first of all, my battery pack was cold, but also that I wouldn't have a lot of power because of it being cold, being less battery. So that's what, if you see dots on the left, dots on the right, now you know what it means. Right, so regenerative braking uses motor to slow the car and feed surplus energy back to the battery. You've also probably heard of one pedal driving. Gas cars might be able to do this in first gear, but not really. But having an electric vehicle, we have the ability to most of the time drive with one pedal. You'll notice though in the winter, this will get diminished a little bit if your battery pack is cold. So reduced regen is normal in certain conditions. The battery cells are cold, roughly about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or the battery is near full capacity. So if you're charging past 90%, you're going to see a diminished level in the ability to get regenerative braking. So you'll hear people say, don't charge to 100, don't charge past 90. You don't need to, unless you're really traveling, but a good reason why too is you're just not gonna have regen. So most likely if you don't have to, just keep it at 90. Also, yeah, there is one little, I guess, stipulation here. The brand new standard range Model 3 is using a different battery pack that allows it to charge to 100%. So if you have that, by all means, charge to 100. All right, so one pedal driving will not slow the car down. This might catch you off guard the first time, especially if you bought your car in the summer. Winter comes by and you're like, my car's not slowing down. Totally normal. Just that until that battery pack warms up, you won't be able to have that full capacity. And this will improve as the vehicle is driven. So, and we'll talk about some other tips and tricks to kind of get the car to get regen back a little sooner rather than having to drive it. All right, so here we go. Ways to improve regenerative braking. So finish charging at about the time you want to leave. So if you are a commuter, this is mostly going to be pertaining to you. If you work from home, probably not something you're going to use too often. So you'll want to, and I didn't mention this, some of the pictures in here might be a little dated just by a few months or so at most. Tesla does updates all the time. So these might look a little bit different, but most of it is the same as far as how it all functions. So manually by adjusting start time or charge rate, or you can use scheduled departure for your car. You can also precondition the car while it's plugged in via the climate settings. So great thing about having an electric vehicle, you can precondition it in your garage. Can't do that with a gas car, can do it with an electric car. This is a great way. So if your car's been sitting for overnight, a few days, whatever it is, I would say even just a few hours, I would give yourself no more than 10 to 15 minutes to precondition. That really should be about all you need. But to do that, to precondition, what this means is just go into your app on your phone, go over to the climate, set it to your desired level, could be 72, could be 80, and just let it go for about 10 minutes. And that will get, first of all, get the car nice and warm, but also it's going to precondition the batteries so they're a little bit more warmed up, which will get you more regenerative braking. All right, newest update. I think this came out just a few weeks ago or so at most. You can now do preconditioning in your app right on the phone. So I won't go too much into this, but if you go into your phone settings on the app, you'll be able to do preconditioning and schedule departure. Another perk of this, another reason why you might want to, on the bottom, you'll notice it says off-peak charging. So if you have just a certain, I think it's the time of use or off-peak charging, it's different energy providers, I think, call it differently, but you can get a lower price for electricity at off-peak hours. That's typically, I want to say, from around maybe 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., roughly around the time. So it's great. And also it does less environmental footprint because they don't have to fire up peaker plants. So there's a good pro to that. And one more plug while we're on this topic here, we have a new partner of the club, EB Energy, that check them out. They're on our partners page, but they actually give you rewards for charging at off-peak hours. Doesn't cost anything. Just download their app and they'll give you actual like financial rewards for charging at off-peak hours. Really cool. All right, so my charge rate is slower than usual. Is something wrong? All right, so charge rate reduced when the battery is cold. So it may show 0 miles an hour until the battery is actually warm enough to receive the current that's coming to it. So for this, this is mostly going to pertain to supercharging, but it even could do with level 2. So there's a gym that I go to nearby. They have a level 2 charger, and when my car's been sitting a long time, it's super cold, dead winter. Even then, it's supposed to get around 22. It might only give me about 6 or 7 for the first 10, 20 minutes at most, and then eventually the battery's warmed up enough. So preconditioning, though, would help with this. Supercharging, though, is where you're going to see this impact the most. So if your battery's cold, you didn't precondition, you might see a very slow rate initially, but after a while it will warm up enough to get that full charge. There's a couple ways, once again, besides preconditioning, there's another way that you can prepare for this, which is always navigate to the supercharger. It doesn't even matter if it's the winter, no matter what, even if you're like, I know both superchargers by me, they're roughly 15 minutes away. I always navigate to them. I know them, I know the navigation by heart, but I always navigate to them because what that does is it's going to precondition the battery. So by the time you get there, it's able to receive as much power from the supercharger as possible. So always navigate. You could either do that through the map. You could tap the little lightning button on the bottom of the screen. You could, push in the steering wheel button, navigate to whichever supercharger you want to go to. So always navigate to the supercharger. Now, the Model 3 and Y and refreshed S and X use a motor heat pump, so you might hear a little bit of a whine. That's totally normal. All right, so battery state of charge also is a major factor in determining the supercharger rate. And some of this is actually helpful too, because it's not just winter-based, but this is helpful for all the different seasons. So if you have the highest rate of your charging is going to be at the lowest percentage. Today, when I went to the mall to supercharge, I had only about probably 5 or 10%. So as soon as I pulled up, it went fast. But if I was around 80, I might only see 150, 200 miles an hour, compared to at that lower rate, you might see 800 miles an hour, 900, 1,000 miles an hour for that early bit of charging, especially if it's a version 3. So your charging rate is going to slow as your state of charge SOC increases. This is also helpful to note if you're traveling from Albany to Rochester. You don't want to necessarily charge past 80% when you're using a supercharger, just because you can if you want to, but what this is going to do is it's ultimately going to keep you at that charger for longer than you need to be. So if you don't have to, get your charge that the car tells you need to go, and then keep going. So plan trips efficiently by traveling or by trying to supercharge between 20 and 80% for your max charge rate. The more frequent stops and charge for less time each stop that is available. All right, so I'm only going 140 miles and I have 217 miles of range available. Why am I getting an alert to stay below 70 miles an hour? So you might have seen this pop up. Don't worry, it happens to everyone. So let's go ahead and see. I think there's a little point for each one. So on the, I think you should be able to see my mouse over here, this area where the battery icon is actually showing you EPA range. So our cars in that area are going to show you EPA range, which isn't necessarily true range. And we'll kind of go into the differences here. So the actual range you get will depend on various factors. There's only one, unless you have magical powers, there's only one that you can modify. So the others are going to depend on your route and environment. We'll talk about the one that you can modify shortly. You might already be able to tell what it is, but for daily driving, range is not an issue. But if you are on a road trip, it can require a little bit more planning, especially if it is wintertime. Navigation will, so you always, like I said, even if you know your way from Albany to Gigafactory, New York, you will still want to use the navigation tool that's built into the car because it's going to take elevation and speed into account. But so definitely always use the in-car navigation. So it may issue an alert to decrease your speed if needed to reach the destination. I've had this happen a few times. And I'm wondering if you're starting to get the one major factor that can play into what you can do to increase your range. There it is, speed. Speed is the only factor that you can actually be in charge of to increase your range. I don't actually know if there's anywhere in New York where the speed limit is 70. I believe down in Florida there is. So realistically, it's going to keep you below, keep you at the speed limit. But once again, only thing that you can really change to increase your range is speed. Cold is something you cannot change. And also rain and snow are other factors that play into your range. All right, let's go ahead and check out this graph. It looks a little confusing, but I promise it's not that scary. All right, so effects of speed and temperature of driving on your range. All right, so your maximum range for all temperatures is about 35 to 40 miles an hour. So if you are in a city area, your range is probably going to be higher than someone who has long commutes on a highway, primarily because just our vehicles are much more efficient at that 30 to 40 mile an hour range. And what you'll see is that it doesn't, I'll try to kind of do my best to explain how this works, but each of these colors represent a specific temperature range. So no matter what, for each temperature range, you're best still traveling at around 35 to 40 miles an hour. Anything past that, it starts to decrease. I could probably go off on a little rant on this one thing about, I think there was the oil embargo, and that's what created this state speed limit of 55 miles an hour. But you'll notice that once you start to go past 55, it doesn't matter if it's a gas car, electric car, hydrogen powered. Once you get past that 55, your efficiency really starts to go down by quite a bit. So don't go 30 or 45 miles an hour on the highway, go the speed limit, but just note that speed plays a very big factor into range. All right, so only get about 70% of the range in cold weather. Interesting note. And as your speed increases, range decreases linearly at all temps due to increased energy usage. Okay. All right, so reducing your speed, this is pretty cool. Same graph. Reducing your speed from 75 to 65 miles an hour will increase your range by 35 miles. That is huge. And from 75 to 55 will give you an increase of range of about 70. I do want to note, I didn't actually specify this. This is specifically using a Model S 100 as an example. So it may vary depending on the car that you're looking at, but this is specifically using data gathered from that specific model. So once again, the major factor you're in control of is speed. So if you want to get more range and, I guess plan ahead and don't try to be in a rush. That's going to be your major factor as far as getting more range. All right, and some more tips and tricks on maximizing the ability to get range. So if you use your heated seats, I believe all Teslas have these. Even I'm just thinking as far as how far back it goes. I believe they all have it. Maybe some of the older S's don't. But heated seats, use these because the heat is directly in contact with your body, and it's much more efficient than it is by using the HVAC system. John, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've been driving up here in Buffalo for going on 4 years with Model 3. The heated seats are your friend in the winter. They only consume, get this, 80 watts on maximum, whereas the original Model 3 would use up to 6,000 or 7,000 watts for the heater. The newer heat pump models that are current are a little bit more efficient. But if you can keep your cabin temp in the low 60s and use your seat heater, it doesn't even matter if you're running your air conditioner. That's not a substantial draw in the big picture. It's the heater in general. So you should be in much better shape if you rely more on the seat heater. They're not going to draw that much.
Perfect. Thank you, John. For those who don't know, John is our regional organizer for the Niagara Frontier region, and he is the one leading that awesome event on the 11th at Gigafactory New York. All right, so if you have a pre-2021 Model S or X, there's something built into those called range mode, not into the 3 or Y, only for those. And I am actually not fully sure what it does, but it's built into there, and it's something that you can use that should help out with range. So you could choose a shorter route, right? Just less mileage, maybe also might end up being roads that you're not going as fast on. You can drive in chill mode. Basically, that's just going to lessen the ability of you to stomp on the accelerator. The more power you're drawing, you know, just simply stated. And using cruise is also very helpful just because it's going to keep you at a maintained speed, especially once again, if you're trying to stay at 55, 60, it's just going to just take a lot of that out of the equation for you. Preconditioning the battery before you leave, and also checking your tire pressure. The higher the pressure, the more efficient. The lower the pressure, the less efficient. We're not stating to overfill what it should be, but just note that you want to be at the right level. Specifically in the wintertime, your PSI, your pressure in the tires is going to decrease quite a bit. So you want to make sure that you go to, if you're in my area, go to Stewart's and get some free air in your tires and make sure they're at the right level. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about EPA range versus, I guess we could call it actual range. So on that left, remember, you're going to see the EPA stated range. There's on the I wouldn't say toolbar, but that little bar on the bottom of your screen, there's a button that looks like an up arrow. If you tap that, you'll be able to get into your trip area, talking about the energy. That's going to bring up this screen over here. So I can't remember if there was, yeah, there's the click. Okay. So what this is going to show you too is just your average range, and you can look at it over the last 5 miles, 15 miles, or 30 miles. Basically just giving you some feedback as far as your driving, your efficiency. You'll want to make sure that you keep this on average range. Instant range can really throw it off. It's, in my opinion, it's not necessary. So keep it, make sure that you're on average range. And this is just going to give you a little bit more of an understanding of your efficiency. And on the right over here, you'll see your projected range. So even though it's showing 246 on this side over here, based on the last 30 miles, it's stating that if you keep driving the way you're driving, the conditions are the way they are, you're looking at a little bit closer to 217. So this is directly from the car. And this isn't something, once again, I want to be very clear, you don't have to be panicked about the winter in an EV. This isn't something you have to know, but it's helpful information. Everything we go over today is just helpful information to basically make your experience of owning an EV the best that it can be. All right, so now there's also a trip chart. The one that we saw before was consumption, if you see on the top right. The next one over is your trip chart. So if you're taking a road, you put in your navigation, that's all set. It will pretty much arrange all this for you. And it's just going to show you your consumption based on your mileage on the bottom. So you know, your total trip, maybe it's 90, 100 miles, 200 miles, whatever it is. It's going to show you where you are along that path on the bottom, and then also how much range you'll have left once you get to your destination. So as your energy usage goes up, this is actually a fun thing if you live in an area where there's mountains. You could put check this out. You'll see that this little sucker right here will go through the top. It'll go past 900 on the way up the mountain, but on the way down, you will actually get negative watt hours per mile. And sometimes you can gain like 10 miles. It all depends on how everything's going, but you can gain a lot going back down the mountain. Can't do that in a gas car. Yeah, so the more energy you use, oops, I guess, there we go. Yeah, the more energy you use, the more that's going to draw. I think I mentioned that before. All right, so once again, like I said, this kind of pertains to not just the winter, but we can look at it throughout all the different seasons. So this is a graph showing your efficiency throughout winter, spring, summer, and fall. So you'll see that in the summer, when it's warmest, your efficiency is going to be at its highest compared to in the winter when it's at its least. Not too much to note here, just showing you some data on it. All right, so summary of recommendations for range. So a very helpful thing to do is to set your display where the battery icon is. Let me see if I can go back. If you tap the area right over here where my mouse is, where it says 246, they have a recent update in the last maybe month, 2 months or so. If you tap that, it'll actually automatically change it to percentage or miles. Before you just have to go into the settings, now you just can tap that. In the beginning, I actually personally hated the concept of using percentage, but I've recently come to understand and learn it's potentially better because percentage is always percentage, right? If you have 50% of your battery pack as far as range remaining, you have 50%. If you have, so it's just, I won't go too deep into that, but it might also take out a little bit of range anxiety too if you have that, because you know, okay, I have 50% left of range. So it's an option. Recap your speed, right? Speed is the only factor that you are in control of when it comes to increasing your efficiency. You can use the energy chart that will show you your just your range, how much you have left, what you'll end up with when you arrive, just another helpful piece. And what's most important, and I kind of already hinted at this, is that ultimately enjoy your car. You don't, not too many negatives there. You can use the heater. If you want to turn on the heater and you have an older Model 3 like mine, use the heater. You don't have to use the heated seats. These are just ways that you can increase efficiency, increase range, and maybe make your driving experience a little bit better. All right, so to get more range while driving, slow down. You can turn down or off the climate. As John mentioned before, if you have the heat pump, pretty much any car that's been made within the last year, I want to say, they all have heat pumps, which are extremely, extremely efficient. So do not worry about using that heater if you have that, extremely efficient. And also limit your acceleration. So you can just turn on chill mode, and this will help out a lot. Also saves your tires. All right. I believe we have a few more slides to go here. Sorry if I'm going too fast. And once again, if there are questions at the end, by all means, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. All right, so I'm losing range while parked. Is that normal? What if I'm going on a trip? Can I leave my car unplugged? All right, so there's something called vampire drain. There's no vampires involved. I'll make that clear. So the battery energy is lost while the car is parked due to energy consumption from the computer and maintaining the battery temperature. If you are seeing your range go down, this is nothing to worry about. This is actually beneficial to the cars. How does that sound? The way I describe it is that the batteries act almost like how we are, what is it, 98.6, right? Our bodies, if we're healthy, we're not sick, we're at a 98.6. Our cars also want to be, the batteries want to be at a happy, healthy level. So to do that, though, it does require a little bit of energy. So this does get worse in the wintertime because cold temperatures can have a pretty negative effect on batteries. So the car wants to make sure that it keeps them fairly warm. All right, so there's an easy fix, and this is actually recommended in the test owner's manual right in the car, not paper, just baked into the screen. Always keep your car plugged in. If you have the ability, always keep your car plugged in. So you'll want to set the car between 70 and 90%. That's roughly the level, unless you have that standard range, the brand new one, then you could set that to 100. Now, if you have a pre-2021 Model S or X, they recommend setting that to around 80. And then I just mentioned the, I think it's lithium iron phosphate, I think is the, yep. That's the one, the brand new standard range Model 3 Plus, where you're allowed to charge to 100. All right, so your battery level is maintained near the set limit. You cannot overcharge. It's you don't have to worry with like your phone, your laptop. I don't believe any of them allow you to set it to 80% or 90%. If you're in your car and you set it to 90%, you don't have to worry about it going over to 91, 92, 93. Set it, you forget it, it's good to go. Yeah. All right, so now can I leave the car plugged in at the airport? Yes, but plan for maximum vampire drain plus the range you need to travel back from the airport. Marvin, I guess you can go ahead and, if it's specifically on this, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, I have a level 2 charger that I install. How can I know? They said it's best to always plug in all the time. The one thing I find, at least with my charger, I don't know if it's for everyone, if I do keep it plugged in. In other words, out of the holster of the level 2 charger. After a while, it goes a little wacky and I have to reset the charger. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but I did a couple of times. I just had to put it back in and basically reset, and then it's all okay. So it sort of doesn't like to be plugged in, but that's the level 2 charger. I just wanted to bring that up. That's all.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, if you're at an airport, make sure that you're leaving enough range for when you come back from the airport. You might think, okay, I have it down to this level, you figured out all the math, but then maybe you live 50 miles away and there's no supercharger nearby. Maybe there's not even a level 2 charger. So plan accordingly for the return of your trip as well. You can monitor intermittently using the app on your phone, but you should note that if you don't, your car goes into a sleep mode of sorts, which also saves battery. So the less that you're opening up your app and checking on it, the better it is for the car too, just because it's not waking up and using energy for doing that. Our cars are ultimately a giant computer on wheels. So very similar to how you put your computer to sleep, the car goes to sleep as well. Sentry mode, cabin overheat protection, which you don't quite have to worry about in the wintertime, and summon standby if unplugged. Those are different ways that you can just lessen the effects of vampire drain, right? It's not really vampire drain because it's something very functional here by using sentry mode. But if you know the area, you feel comfortable, you don't have to keep sentry mode on. But I always would if you can. All right, so find a parking lot that has, there's an app called PlugShare, and some parking garages, different parking areas, even the Albany airport actually has level 2 chargers, I believe, that allow you to be plugged in the whole time that you're away. So check and see if there's a certain parking garage, either at the airport or even if it's just a level 1 regular standard wall outlet, you might be able to plug into that. And just great way to make sure that your car is at the temperature that you want to stay at, or the temperature at the range that you want to stay at. All right, so checklist to minimize vampire drain for extended unplugged parking. I mentioned before, if you don't have to or you don't want to, once again, these are just suggestions. Don't use sentry mode. It's going to take about 1% per hour, especially if you're in an area with a lot of traffic. It might even be more than that. So plan accordingly with sentry mode. There's something called summon standby mode. I believe this is just keeping a more frequent connection between your phone and the car to get it ready to use summon at a more quickly notice overall. And now you could also, you don't have to do this one because it's the winter, but turning off cabin overheat protection, more functional in the summertime. Minimize waking by using the app. So like I said, if you don't need to check it, don't check it, it'll wake it up, might use a little bit more energy. Turn off the scheduled charging, departure, preconditioning. And lastly, if you're using a third-party app, make sure it allows the car to sleep. There's a ton of different aftermarket apps out there, really great apps, but they might be keeping the car on much more frequently, which is using more range. Travis, you had something?
Well, you mentioned earlier the PlugShare app, and I just wanted to let everybody know how I use it all the time. I was down in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, clicked on PlugShare, found a place, free parking, free level 2 destination Tesla charger. It's accurate. And what I really like about PlugShare is you can leave a review. So if I roll up to a charger and it's not working, I can put in a negative review. Hey, it's not working. And then the next person, it's kind of like Waze in that way. It's like real-time updates. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, that actually concludes our part 1. This actually was a giant slideshow, but I figured it'd be better to leave enough time for Q&A. I probably went through that a little too fast, so apologies on that. Just a couple quick notices before we get into the Q&A. If you sign up for the event, you already are on our website. You've seen it before. It's just TOCNYS.org. If you need to send an email, if you have any questions, you can send it to our email address, which is info@TOCNYS.org. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, TOCNYS. And if you're not already a member, make sure to sign up. That way you can stay in the loop about other events that we have going on. But I'll go ahead and stop the sharing of the screen here, and we can open it up to Q&A. So if you have, I'll kind of go ahead and check out the chat. Let me see if I could bring that up. I'll read through some of the questions here, but if you have any questions, you could use on the bottom of your screen, there's a little toolbar area. you should be able to raise your hand and then I can call on you. So it looks like Travis, you have something?
Yeah, real quick. If anybody's going to be in anyone who's in Western New York, I'm going to be there this weekend. If you're interested in maybe trying to do an informal meetup, I'll be in the Rochester area Saturday and Sunday.
And you use Twitter primarily, right, Travis?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, put your account in there just in case anyone else is on there and they could.
For sure.
All right. So, question relating to the recording. So this will be on our club's YouTube account, probably I would say by Friday. I'll put a mention in our weekly newsletter that will have a link to it. So that way you can watch it, click there and then watch it on our YouTube channel. All right. So, interested on what you suggest if you only have a rear wheel drive for winter driving. Good question. So this will probably, like I said, I'll do my best to answer all the questions in the chat, but a lot of these will probably be answered in part 2. The biggest thing I can recommend is get snow tires. Even if you have all-wheel drive, if you have rear-wheel drive, snow tires on our cars it's a night and day difference. Not that they are bad. Our cars Teslas are phenomenal. Electric vehicles are phenomenal when it comes to traction control. But once you put snow tires on a Tesla, it turns into a tank. Minus any of the firearm aspects. So I would recommend get yourself a great set of winter tires. All right, I only have street parking. Any downsides to preconditioning while not charging? No, I would say if you only have street parking available, still precondition. Remember, you don't have to precondition, but it's going to give you that regen that you might want. You know, if you're in a city, you might not even need the regen per se, but I would say no real downside besides using up a little bit of energy. That's probably the only downside. All right, what if you don't have access to home charging? What are some of the best practices to keep the battery healthy? That's a good question. So this is going to sound kind of funny. So I have a black Model 3. I got it because it was actually the free color at the time. Now I look cool because I have the $1,500 extra paint job, right? So the black paint is actually very functional in capturing sunlight and keeping the battery warmer. Keeps the cabin warmer, keeps the battery warmer. So if possible, I know this isn't super duper practical here, but if possible, try to keep your car parked in an area where there's not going to be too much shade. That would be my biggest suggestion as far as a best practice for keeping the battery healthy. I don't know. I would say, actually, you know what, John, you have your hand raised. You're the perfect person to offer that one if you can.
No, I'd be glad to answer that. I cannot charge at home because I'm in a condo. I do have a garage, but my car is also a black Model 3 like Steven. Here's my advice. Don't worry about the battery health. I'm at 99% of my original mileage after almost 4 years, and that involves mainly level 2 charging. I'd say 9 out of 10 times. I opportunistically charge if I'm going out of the house to a meeting or shopping or whatever, going on hikes. I usually try to park close to where I can charge. So that means I'm not always plugged in. I'm not always supercharging. Supercharging is mainly for trips, or if you're doing an excessive amount of winter driving in town, you may get down to the level where level 2 charging would take forever. So I would just not worry about it. TLDR, enjoy the car, and you should be in great shape. Unless you're doing something really wrong to the car, like, I don't know, drag racing, I think you should be in good shape.
Thanks, John. All right, so why would you need to precondition the entire time you're driving so if you're navigating to your destination, so from Albany to Rochester? So to answer the question, the car is going to, based on where you are. So, okay, so I think this question came through an email to me before, and it's happened to me before where, I'm driving from here to Rochester and it starts preconditioning now for the time I get to Syracuse. Why would it need to do that? Syracuse is, 2 hours away from here. I don't have the perfect answer for this, but it's not going to be using up that much range to do the preconditioning. Like if very, very little, like it's barely noticeable as far as any range that it's going to take. So I don't know why or when the car is actually doing the preconditioning, but I would always just navigate to your destination because it will do all the thinking for you. So I don't have the perfect answer for that. And like you're mentioning, yeah, highway speeds are going to have, right, just by driving the car, it's going to warm it up. So I guess the car is probably doing all the calculations as far as when do I need to get the batteries to the right temperature, to the right perfect temperature, so that it can receive the most amount of current as possible. I don't know if I answered your question perfectly, but I tried. All right, so does AC inside the car impact it, such as turning off the AC? I mean, I think if you're talking about just range overall, yeah, in the summertime, you know, anything that you're using, any I wouldn't call it an accessory, but if you're using the AC, it's obviously going to be drawing some more battery. So very different with the heat pump. So if you have any newer Tesla, the heat pump is amazing with both creating you know, a cooler interior and a warmer interior. So nothing to worry about there. But yeah, AC, you know, turning off the AC will give you a little bit more range. It is. Oh, man, this could probably go into a pretty deep one, so I don't want to take too much time on this question. But same thing, you know, as far as is it more efficient to drive with your windows open or have the AC on? I think there was a Mythbusters episode on this years ago. I don't have the right answer. If anyone does, if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to type it into the chat, I believe it may be more efficient to use the AC than have the windows open. But ultimately, this comes down to, what do you prefer? I love to drive with my windows down, so I'm going to do that no matter what in the summertime. Even if it's like 100, I'm kind of crazy like that. So yeah. All right. Does running accessories like heated seats and the radio take power down very fast? No. And I think, John went over this before. The heated seats they're going to, once again, everything's going to use energy, but the heated seats use much less energy than the actual HVAC system. The radio itself, I don't think it's going to make much of a noticeable impact on your range. So like the slide before, enjoy the car. But if you are in a pinch, turn off the heat, turn off the radio, make sure you have all the range that you need. Okay, so does AC inside the car impact it? Oh, did I want to? I think yeah, I think if you're talking about the overall, just using the HVAC system in general, yeah, but you could keep it off and you won't be using any energy from that. Okay, so what if you don't have access to home charging? What are some best practices to keep the battery healthy? I think John went over that, so we'll go ahead and pass that one for now. Typical daily drain level. In Brooklyn over the weekend, I lost 5 to 6% off it. Yeah, so I think this question over here. So if you're in an area where there's a lot of foot traffic, you're probably going to see more of an impact on range, just because the car is always being activated, the ultrasonic sensors, the cameras, the car is always on. So you might see a little bit more range loss in an area with high traffic. Typical daily drain level, it's really just going to depend on, you know, so many of the factors we talked about. If your car is in an area where there's sunlight, if you have Sentry mode on, if not, but you could expect about 1% per, I think it was per hour, as far as range loss using Sentry mode, but so many factors go into that. All right, is scheduling preconditioning only available when plugged in, meaning not available if parked in a lot with no charger? I think that might be correct. I don't have my car plugged in right now, but no, you can. So if you go onto the Tesla app, and there's my car is at a parking lot right now, and if I go over to schedule, there's a little schedule button. You could do all of that right from there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be plugged in to do the preconditioning. That, I guess that deals with more of the schedule. Yeah, okay. There's Travis's comment. All right, so we've had our Model 3 for a while and noticed during the winter the door handles get stuck. Good. Actually, this is not in either presentation, so it's a great question. The door handles get stuck or frozen. Is there anything we can do to fix this? Yes, so I believe that Tesla has the HVAC system. If you turn it on, if you precondition in the wintertime, I believe it actually directs the air to the doors. That will help deal with that a little bit. It might not be the perfect way of dealing with it. There's a very simple solution. This has only happened to me a couple times, but you want to take your hand like this, make a fist, and if you hit the thicker part on the end, if there is ice buildup, and just give a little thump in that area, it'll break any of the ice in that area. That's not a precautionary, that's more of an active way to fix that. But I know with the windows, some people put a certain type of there's a lubricant. I can't remember exactly what it is. John, would you happen to know? You might have it with him. What is that, John? Oh, I think are you on mute?
Hang on, I was muted.
Okay.
Okay. This is the greatest stuff. I'll put it up on the screen. It's called Gummipflege. It's German, but you can get it on Amazon. Gummi, Gummi Pflege, Pflege. And what it is, it's basically like the old Ban deodorant, kind of almost like a roll-on. And you put this on your rubber gaskets around all the windows and the doors once a year. I do it in the fall, and kind of rub it in, you know, like with a little cloth. And this will keep all of those rubber gaskets nice and supple, just like they're brand new, and it prevents the windows from sticking. So if you're concerned about that, this little $10 item is going to be your friend. And I also did post in the chat a link from Tesla Official talking about those winter driving tips. And it may have sounded funny, but Stephen's right. They recommend hitting the bigger part of the door handle on a Model 3 and Y to loosen it if it does get frozen. But also I would agree, if you preheat the car, that may do the same thing.
What's the name of that stuff again?
It's called Gummi, Gummi Pflege, Pflege.
Perfect.
And
Thank you,
it's on
Janelle.
Amazon. Yeah, I'll try to find a link.
There
Yeah,
is
if you
another. Oh,
I
sorry.
was going to say, if you go to Amazon, I just looked it up on Amazon. If you go into Amazon and do a search, just type in Gummi, Gummi dash, and it'll come up with Pflege.
Perfect. Thank you, Harry. Dennis, you have a question? Oh, sorry. You're on mute. Sorry about that.
Sure. No, on the same subject, parking outside and the door handles freezing up or things like that. I've had my car 3 winters, and I learned a really valuable lesson. And it's just exceptionally simple, which is if you will park where your driver's door is facing the sunny side, if you have the option of which direction to park where the driver's door is toward the sun. If you are fortunate to not have to leave at 6 a.m. or something, sometimes by the time you get to your door, it'll pop right open, where the shady side can be like a brick with ice. That's
Sure.
it.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, so there's another question to follow up to the one about the windows, which is the mirrors and the charging door. I believe all of the newest Teslas, I want to say once again, the last year and a half, actually have a heating element built into the charging door. So not anything you have to worry about. There's also an update, I think about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago or so, somewhere around there, where Tesla has it where in the wintertime, the windows actually drop down a little bit more than normal, which makes it less likely for them to get stuck. We have a question from Cyril.
Oh yeah, question on like the ice part. Does anyone has tried like the de-icing sprays that you can get from like Amazon or something, like on like either the door handle when it's frozen up or like the glasses?
I personally never. Anyone else? Yeah.
Dennis,
Me again, if it's all right. I can go get the brand and bring it back over here in a minute, but it's there's a de-icing spray that's you have to do it before the night the ice is coming in, like there's a storm coming in, but you spray it across all the glass surfaces, and you can actually spray this on the door handles if you wish. It's a mixture of a little bit of de-icing material like alcohol and a little lubricant like an oily substance. So it's a little messy when weather gets nice, but it definitely allows the windows to not stick and roll up and down properly, and allows the door handles to be more free. I'll bring back the name and I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Actually, there one more thing before we move on. There's another big suggestion, not suggestion, I guess suggestion, yeah. If you're washing your car in the winter time, as funny as that might sound, but even if you go through an automated car wash, make sure that you dry off the areas where your door handles are. Those could freeze. There was a big article by, I won't even name the company or anything about that or the author or anything, but they showed the door handles are frozen. He couldn't get it to open and he was trying so hard, and you could see that the car was immaculately clean. So most likely it was washed. Water got into the door handle area, it froze. So if you are washing your car in the wintertime, make sure that you dry off that area, I guess, a little bit more than you might normally pay attention to. AP?
Yeah, question about leaving the car plugged in So I have it set to only charge off peak. I believe it starts at like 4 a.m. and preconditions for departure at 7:15. Should I still leave the car plugged in during the day? If it's snowing, if it's cold. I'm assuming it's not going to be drawing any charge though, right? Or charging the battery at that point?
It might not be technically charging the battery to where you want to go to, but what it might do is rather than using energy from the battery, let's say it's at 60%. And I don't know this for sure. This is just a guess, and maybe John might have a better answer, Harry. But it might be keeping your car at the percentage where you currently have it. So rather than drawing from the battery, it's going to draw from the grid and keep the car at that level. That would be my thought. I could be wrong on that, but that would be my thought.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, with the caveat, if you have 240 charging with 120 voltage, you might be underwater. It might use more juice than the 120 is providing, and it may dip into your battery to keep the car warm. But yeah, generally preheating on 240 volt is the preference, if you can.
Yeah, it is a 240. It's a NEMA 14-50, I believe. Thanks.
All right. Cyril, another question? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Specifically on thanks on the car washing part. Since we have, as in like in the Rochester area, is there any like car wash like Delta Sonic, Royal, and all these places anywhere that anyone has experience with and like would go for, or like
Harry?
Yeah, I use Delta Sonic probably 2 or 3 times a week in the wintertime, just to keep all the crap off the car. The one thing, and I just posted in the chat, but the one thing that Tesla's website does mention that is to disable your automatic folding mirrors if you're using that feature in the wintertime, because they will freeze up and will give you nothing but headaches. Trust me when I tell you. I just ordered some of that gummy fledge, so phlegm or whatever that was from Amazon. So I'm definitely going to use that, John. That sounds like a great idea.
And yeah, it is. It's addictive. Oh, I'm sorry, Gary.
That's okay.
To answer Cyril's question first, when you wash the car, open all the doors and let them drip dry a little bit, and then take a microfiber and kind of dry off the area around the doors where they meet, and you'll be in much better shape. Yeah, if you let the car freeze as soon as you've washed it, that's a formula for disaster until the spring.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that much time to wait.
So do you usually go with like the normal car wash or like the touchless variant of like Delta Sonic, folks who go to Delta Sonic?
I also use Delta Sonic, and I've had a lot of good luck. I was apprehensive. But what I do is I make sure my suspension is up at the highest because I don't want it to rub on anything underneath.
Yeah.
I haven't had any problems yet, knock on wood.
Mine usually goes right into the garage after Delta Sonic, so it's usually not an issue for me. But the point of actually wiping down and actually you've got the vent mode on the car once it's in the garage. Just put it in vent mode so that the windows are down and gives them a chance to dry out.
Yeah, if you have a heated garage,
wipe off around the doors. And, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Gonna go through. Gary, did you have a question too? I don't want to go back to the chat if you had something.
No, I didn't have any questions.
Okay.
No.
Oh, Dennis, you have the product right there?
Yeah, I put it in the chat if anybody wants to copy it, but it's pretty simple. It's Prestone brand, and it just says Ice and Frost Shield. And it's at most any auto store. It has some caveats like when you can use it or not use it, which I put in the chat. If you can copy that and paste it into anything. A few instructions, like you keep it in the house, you don't keep it in the car. It can freeze, ironically, but it's a really good product. Your storm is coming in before night. You spray it on all the glass on the door handles. Take it inside. In the morning, when the car is covered with snow, you notice that on the glass surfaces, the snow is sliding off, and the handles work right away.
Perfect. Thank you. AP?
I see John Griffith had a question about mud flaps. And
is that from the chat?
From the salt? Yeah.
Well, not, it's more a comment. I'm in Rochester. I put mud flaps on my car a couple of years ago, and I think it helps a lot with ice and salt buildup in the wheel wells.
And you know what? Our mobile service tech in the Western New York region did tell me this last week. He said he's starting to notice a little bit of pitting on the front edge of my rear wheel well. And he claims that that's from road salt being kicked up by the front wheels. So having a mud flap on your front fender is probably a good idea to prevent pitting of the paint on the rear fender.
AP, you have a question?
Yeah, car covers. What are anyone's thoughts on that? Like Tesla sells the outside one. My car, is parked in the driveway, not in the garage. Any thoughts on that? Good, bad, indifferent?
Probably makes taking the snow off easier, right? Just grab the tarp and, or you could even use I guess a soft broom on it too. You don't have to worry about damaging the paint, so you could brush it right off. Does anyone have any personal experience using a car cover in the wintertime or just in general? No? All right. Oh, Dennis, you're on mute. I see. Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm making too many comments, but
No, you're fine.
I've had 3 winters now, so yeah. You got to have a place to put it. If you have a garage, you probably don't need the car cover. If you don't have a garage and you've got a big car cover that is soaking wet from melting snow and has ice on it, where do you put it? If you put it in your car, now your car's wet. If you put it in the house, where are you going to put it? So
I have a garage, just not for the car.
No, I just mean there are a lot of people in the room here. So to me, it's like every person has to know your situation and what you can do with a great big wet canvas. Because yeah, it helped you, but now where do you put it? So it's up to each
the car
individual.
cover doesn't damage the car with the snow, but you're saying the only issue is where do you store it after the fact?
Because when you take it off, it's full of snow, ice, and what has already melted and refrozen. And where do you put it? You're holding it. Now, where are you going to put it?
In the front?
I've been hearing stories about, it sticks to the car, the actual part will, with the ice melting, it'll stick. So I was just wondering if anyone had, experience with that. I can store it in the garage, just not my car.
No, if you've got a place to put it, I think it can be a problem, but it can also be really great. But you unfortunately have to find out how it suits you personally, and you have to buy it first. Yeah.
And just preheat the car. You have the app. Preheat it 10 or 15 minutes in advance, like Steven says. You won't believe how convenient that is.
Before we move back to the questions in the sorry, one second. Just before we move back to the questions in the chat, I just want to make one comment on this. We have a member, Edie, here in the capital region. She had a covered tent of sorts where she used to park her Model 3 under. There was a really bad snowstorm last year, and the tent collapsed, and it had metal bars on the top. One of the metal bars hit and fell on the roof, made a crack on the glass roof. So do your research into, if you're going to look at something like that as an option, do your research, make sure that it has extremely high reviews, that it's extremely sturdy. You don't want to have to deal with that. So hopefully she doesn't mind me sharing that story. Okay, so let's go back to the chat. There's a couple questions that are in here. We're almost at the 4:30 mark. We'll go on longer. If you want to stay, feel free to stay. All right, so you mentioned calculating vampire drain before. How to calculate it? Roughly, you could look at about maybe 1% an hour. So just all factors involved, 1% an hour. All right. Hey, Hailtown, how's it going? Is autopilot, how is autopilot in the snow? Okay, my first winter with autopilot when I got my car was December of 2018 was when I picked up my car. I was like, this thing's not going to be good in the winter. It blew me away how good autopilot was in the winter. Like I honestly, I'm not even joking. I'm not trying to hype it up. I couldn't even see the lines. And I was like, let me see if autopilot can do it. And it did it. And this was almost 3 years ago now. And Tesla has only gotten better with their autopilot systems. So I would say don't depend on it. But it does a pretty great job, especially even with all the salt on the road that makes it very hard to see where the lines are. I would say you should be in good hands with autopilot in the wintertime, especially, even if there's a little snow. The only thing I would say as far as your second part, is it a bad idea? Be cautious now too, because you might know the conditions, right, of the slush and snow and how things are going. Autopilot might not really take all of those things into play. If there's a car that stops short in front of you, there's a lot of slush on the ground. If you don't have traction, you're not slowing down. And I know you and I know what car you have, so you want to make sure you have some good snow tires on there. Model S Plaid. Okay, so AP, another question?
Yeah, one last thing. So what about regen braking in the snow? Do people back off? Like I have it on set on hold at the moment. Do you change that setting to creep or roll?
So as far as that goes, you don't have to do anything. The newer Teslas, I don't know why, I would have thought it was all software based, but you used to be able to change how aggressive your regenerative braking is on all the new Teslas. As far as I know, all the new Teslas, you can't do that. The older ones you can. And from what I've been told is that you actually want to put it on standard or whichever one is less aggressive. There's two options, and they actually recommend that you don't have it on the full regen capability, just because it might throw you off. That's what I've heard.
Stephen, that's it's standard or low. So you want to set it low in the wintertime, because if you set it to standard, leave off the accelerator, as it starts to brake, you can go into a skid, and I've had that happen to me. So yeah, if you have the ability, set it to low in the winter, and then you'll have to use your brakes. But again, it won't force you into a skid.
Perfect. There's one more thing while we're talking about brakes and whatnot. It'll be in part 2, so I don't want to get carried away here. And John loves talking about this too, but use your brakes in the wintertime. Use your brakes, because what happens is all that salt and garbage builds up on the brake pads, and you want to keep them clean. So the best way to keep it clean is you could go get it cleaned and take it to Tesla, and they could do that for you and lubricating. But just using the brakes every once in a while will get all that grime off of there, which is healthy. Udemy, you have a question?
Hey, yes, long time not.
Yes.
First winter, is there any best snow tire brand to get? Michelin, Monkey, Donkey?
I have a friend that swears he has a Toyota RAV4, but he has the BlizzTex, I think the Bridgestone BlizzTex. He loves them. He does research into everything, hours of research. So I know he has those. I don't know if they make them for Teslas, but we do in our part 2, we do have a slide on tires, but if anyone has any recommendations, by all means, please either chat or unmute.
Yeah. So I bought the Tesla package with the Pirelli tires from the service center, and they're fine here in Rochester. So I've taken them to the Adirondacks too in the winter without any difficulty.
Yeah, I know they had them in the store, but I was just curious because there's some people that love to explore, and yeah, that's why I was curious.
Harry, you had feedback?
I did do some research on the snows, and BlizzX were indeed one of the recommended ones, and they are available, at least for my Model 3. They're available. I imagine they have sizes for all the Teslas.
Yeah.
Part 2, by the way, Udemy, if you can make it, definitely come to part 2. There's a slide on part 2 that shows you a certain icon that basically means it is a winter ready tire. There's like a seal of approval. I'm guessing I don't know if it's a government thing, but there's a certain seal that says, hey, this is a snow tire. This is meant for the winter time, compared to all seasons, which can, they could work in the winter, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I remember that from years ago when I lived in Oregon, that funny logo thing. Yeah, I'm around, I'm working.
Kerwin, question? Oh, where'd he go?
Sorry, I was muted. Just co-signing the BlizzAx. All my other vehicles, I put BlizzAx on, and the car is like on rails when it's in the snow. So,
are you gonna get them on your car?
Actually, I'm getting tires tomorrow, a whole new rim and tire package, and they recommended something that starts with an H and claim that they were the original snow tire makers. I forget the name of the company. I'm on the fence, but Grand Premier is swearing that these are the original snow tires. So I'll let you know by the next section how they actually work.
Yeah, that would be Hakkapeliitta.
Yes, you're right.
Hakkepelitta, I think.
Are they actually good?
They're good. They're not like head and shoulders above other good snow tires, but they're good tires. Yeah, I like BlizzAx myself, but
I might have to take that into consideration. I'm used to BlizzAx. All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. Love the picture you have on there, by the way, John. Gerard, question?
No, I was just going to say the Hakkapelittas are the ones I have, and they're great. The only problem is you got to make sure it goes for your car. Some of the Hakkapeliitas will not fit some of the Teslas. So you have to be sure that you're getting the right one. And they also have studded and unstudded.
Question here on preconditioning. So do you have to schedule preconditioning, or you could just simply turn on the climate? Simply turn on the climate. If that's what works for you, simply turn on the climate. Like I said, I work from home, so I don't have to take a commute. I don't have to get ready at 8 o'clock every morning or 7 o'clock, 9, whatever it is. So whenever you want to, you're going to go out for a little bit, get that car nice and toasty, give yourself 10 to 15 minutes at most. All right. Is there a difference when plugging in using 120 volt with 15 amp versus level 2 charger to maintain the car parked in the wintertime? I want to say that level 2 and 120 at 15 amps is probably about the same as far as miles per hour, as far as what you're getting. I wouldn't say there's really probably not much of a difference there. You're probably around that 20 miles an hour or so with that. From Udeme, what's the safest / right way to open the door if the window, good question, if the window or car is frozen? Just turn on the heat or the cabin seats? Yeah, that's a good question. If it's not coming down, preconditioning is going to be your best friend. Like I said, you could also just judge by the weather, right? If it's dry and no rain or slush or snow or whatever's in the forecast, you don't have to worry about this as much. But if your car's outside and there's been some freezing rain, make sure you precondition it. And you might want to do that for 20 minutes if it's something like that. You can use that spray bottle before that Dennis showed. So that's another good option. Like John had that little German brand, which I cannot remember the name of. That's another fantastic option. But to answer a question, thank you, John. To answer a question a little bit better, you want to be careful too sometimes, because I've also heard of some people where they're able to get the door to open by forcing it, but then they can't close it properly. And by trying to force it closed, they end up damaging the trim. They either make a dent, a scratch, whatever it is on the top area. So really the safest way is to precondition, I'd say, or to prepare the best that you can by using different tools. If needed, I don't want to recommend this because it sounds silly, but if needed and you're in a rush, you could always go through the passenger door if that isn't giving you any issues. I know it sounds silly. It's not like the primary way to do it, but it's an option. John?
Yeah, Stephen, I copied a link from Tesla Official on there for winter tips, and it does say to use your hand on the fat portion of the door if it is frozen. That's acceptable. And the same thing with mirrors. If mirrors are frozen, you can twist them. It probably doesn't feel proper, but definitely check the official link to find out what's possible and what isn't.
Thank you. And then we went over the winter tires. So it's going to come down to preference, research, but it sounds like the BlizzX are very well respected. Right. There's a question from Jean. Can you spell it here or post the link? I think that was probably talking about probably the products that we mentioned. If not, I guess I'll see now. There's quite a bit of comments, so I'm trying to catch up here. Sorry about that. All right, we've tried the preconditioning process, which unfortunately did not assist very much. Also, hitting the door is a little hard to do when you're a senior citizen. So I guess, yeah, so if the door handle, I'm guessing you're specifically speaking about when the door handle itself is frozen. You could use that spray bottle like Dennis showed before. That might help out. The preconditioning with the door handle, it's probably going to be one of the areas where it's the least likely to make an impact, just because it's on the outside of the car. There's insulation, a lot for that to get to. I think one of the other recommendations, and I know these aren't like the perfect answers, but if you can park it to where the sun is facing it. Dennis, you have some feedback on that?
Yeah, the service technician, mobile technician talked with me recently just from a routine service, but we went over some of this winter stuff just on a casual basis. And he said it is okay to briefly spray the door handles again before snow is coming or before a storm or that sort of thing. Briefly spray them either with the Prestone thing that I mentioned or even with WD-40, because he said it's a rather sealed unit. The mechanics of the door handle are not going to be harmed by a little lubrication, and that may assist with the freezing thing as well.
Gotcha. Thank you, Dennis. So I hope those suggestions are helpful, but yeah. All right. Does the Model 3 have the ability to stand up the wipers before snowfall? Is there a hinge point? So yes and no. Not by pulling on them, but there is, if you go into service in the car, there is a wiper mode of sorts. I can't remember the exact name, but there is a way to do that. Now, I don't know if they stand up. They might
That's
only
what I'm
pivot.
asking is to get
Yeah.
them up. I've never had a car that can't, and I tried to do that when I was cleaning the windshield, and I didn't see that. But I heard somebody say there's a hinge point, but I didn't want to force anything. It didn't feel like it wanted to give.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm
And
seeing.
for winter coming up, I feel that that's something we'd want to do when it's parked out in a lot during the work day and snow's falling, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no hinge point as far as I know, but
Okay.
there is that service mode. That's really just to replace the windshield wipers, just so you can get to
Right.
them. Preconditioning, I would have to assume would help out a bit, and I don't know if it was only on the like a 2012 or 13 or 14, but the older Teslas actually used to have a heating element. The Model S used to have a heating element built into where the wipers rested, so that it would always be, there would never be an issue. Pretty cool. I don't think any of them have that today though. Dennis, question?
It was pretty warm, not pretty cool. It was pretty warm.
Thanks, John.
The hand up was from before. I don't know if you have to click something to make it go away.
There you go.
But my understanding on the question you just had is doing service mode, and so that the wipers move up under the glass. Then that way, if ice is sliding off and pooling down in the well, it doesn't make it difficult. When you come, you can just clean off the glass, dig out the little pool in the reservoir area, and then go to normal mode. It's not the most convenient. I would love to pop them up, but I like you, I don't want to break anything.
It's probably not a cheap repair. I'm guessing on those wipers, especially since they have the fluid in them too, that little line. All right, let me see. I think we're catching up on a lot of the questions. There's another one. Any tips? Great question from Will, and I could relate to you on this one. For the last 3 years, I've only had 110 charging, just regular standard wall outlet. Any tips or driving beyond if home charging is the only limited to 110? So I'm right there with you on that. I would say we talked about plug share as an option. I don't know where you're from, but here in the capital region, all the vent fitnesses have maybe an incentive to go to the gym too. It is for me, but they have level 2 charging there for free. Different shopping centers might have, like I said, in the capital area, we have Price Chopper. I know you have Wegmans out in Rochester area. Some of them might offer level 2 charging there. And then you could always use supercharging if you need to, but make sure you precondition. But as far as other options, if possible, you could always upgrade to NEMA 1450 for the house. But I've had 110 for the last 3 years, and I've been fine with that. Never had a terrible commute, nothing over 25 minutes or so. But I would say if you've recently just got your car and you only have 110, you could pull it off for as long as you need to. But if you can financially, if you have the money, I would say get that outlet. It'll make your life a lot better. Should have done it by now myself, but all right. Let's see. I was just talking with a member too, brand new member, right before this. We were talking about tires and whatnot. There's all of Tesla's tires. I'm just seeing a comment here about tires on Tesla's website. They're like all out of stock. If you want to get a nice looking wheel for your car, let's say you have a performance Model Y, you have 21-inch wheels, you're in New York, we have potholes everywhere, you probably don't want to ride around with those in the wintertime. You can go to this website called the letter T, Sportline, and they make wheels that look exactly like Tesla's wheels, like the Uber turbines and the stock 18 inches. So if you want to get a pair of 19-inch wheels that look like the Uber turbines on the Performance Model Y, you can get them on their site and then find a pair of tires that'll match those. So that would be my recommendation if you're looking for, we'll talk more about tires on the next one, tires and wheels and whatnot, but yeah. All right. Yeah, good. From Marvin, regarding snow, when it does, stay the heck home. All right. See if there's more questions. I think we're actually all caught up on there. Once again, if you have any questions you want to ask aloud, more than welcome to. Just you can use the raise hand icon. If not, I guess we can come to an end here. I don't think there was anything else on my schedule. If you weren't here in the very beginning, just one thing from Tesla, they just had just something they wanted to share, which was if you have anything that deals with tire repair or glass repair, it doesn't need to be done through Tesla, through the app or anything like that. You can go to any shop and they can take care of it there. They just want to make sure that everyone knew that. On my end, we have a bunch of events coming up as we end the year. Even if you're not in the Rochester area or the Western New York area, we have on December 11th. I'm just calling it Tesla Day. It's not actually called that, but I'm calling it Tesla Day. Big event at Gigafactory New York. We're doing a toy drive out there. Only factory in New York, and actually only factory in the East Coast. So really cool if you can make it, and you're welcome to come to any of these events. By the way, some members don't know this, but you can go to an event if you're in Long Island and there's something in Syracuse, you can go. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be from that area. And then that evening on the 11th or that night, we're having our annual holiday party, free to come to. Dandelion is going to be sponsoring it. So a massive thank you to them. They're not here, but I want to express my gratitude. They are paying for all of the food at that event. So come get a free meal, hang out. It's going to be good Italian food. So might be a little biased on that choice, but yeah, it'll be a great time. There's gonna be trivia. We'll have prizes. It's gonna be a really fun time. So those are all on the website, free to attend. And I think that's everything. So thank you for attending. And our part 2, we're gonna talk a little bit more about tires and some other tips and tricks. That will be next Tuesday, exact same time as this one. So I think with all that said, thank you for coming this afternoon and learning a little bit. And I hope I did all right here. I know I might have went a little fast in the beginning, so apologize for that. But I hope to see you next Tuesday.